Welcome to NarrativeNook audio tales where enchanted stories come to life. If you enjoy our stories, please subscribe, like and share to support our channel. Enjoy listening.
All of a sudden, Harvey's eyes glinted with hatred. It was the hatred of being unable to kill him. He flung the man back onto the metal bed. His face was hidden in the shadows, so the constant changes in his expressions could not be seen clearly. He started chuckling. It sounded refined and pleasant. However, when it fell into the ears of the man, it sounded like the whisper of a devil. He covered his ears in fear. It was as though their exchange just now had used up his lifetime's worth of courage. Harvey turned around. Under the sunlight, his face seemed gentle and handsome. He was like the graceful son from a noble family, which seemed a little out of tune with this filthy place. Harvey turned around and left the ward. As he left, the door was secured with a heavy lock. He said gently, "I'll visit you again." The man behind the door trembled in fear upon hearing his words. A look of panic appeared on his face. He then curled up into a ball. His eyes were filled with pain. In the end, he fell to the side of the bed in pain while holding his blood-stained hands. He seemed like he was crying but also laughing. It looked incredibly eerie. Rowan sent the subordinate that Nicole had met previously to care for the patient. Victor jumped with glee when he received the order. Just as he was about to head upstairs, he remembered Rowan's instructions. And so he went to Area B to retrieve some drugs. The members of Group B frowned at the sight of him touching the things in their experimental area. "What are you doing?" Victor answered without lifting his head. "Our boss asked me to prescribe the lady some drugs." The members of Group B had looks of doubt. "Do you know how precious the drugs here at Area B are? There aren't many specific drugs that can promote heart healing globally. That little bag in your hand costs more than that brain of yours. Put it down at once." Victor ignored them. After getting a hold of the drug, he ran upstairs at the speed of light. The members of Group B watched his retreating figure with infuriation. Since they heard that it was Rowan's orders, they did not say anything despite being unhappy about it. They could only sigh and go about their businesses. At the same time, they were secretly shocked at how this woman valued someone from Group D. It was depressing. The drugs from Group B aren't something they can make at their current level, so they're obviously precious. How could he take so much of it? Next time, no one's allowed to take them as they please, they thought. After getting a hold of the drugs, Victor went up to the second floor happily. He then granulated the drug before heading to Nicole's ward. Nicole was beside Mr. Riddle Sr., testing equipment. Mr. Riddle Sr. was recovering well. His complexion looked much better. He was probably going to wake up tonight. Nicole put away the stethoscope in her hands. She had an indifferent expression as she looked at the subordinate that had entered. "Half the dosage is enough. Too much of this drug will make the old man depend on it when he recovers. Since he could recover to such a degree, using the drug as a supplement will be sufficient," she thought. Victor responded. He halved its amount while asking carefully, "Miss, did you operate on this patient yourself?" He had only speculated that from Rowan's words yesterday, and now he wanted to get a clear answer from Nicole. Nicole responded with a faint "aha." There was no need for her to hide anything from these people. A look of "I knew it" appeared on Victor's face as he looked at her. The reverence in his eye was unmissable. Her excellence caused a little doubt to appear in him. Is this person a medical researcher from the HQ? Otherwise, how is she so talented, so much so that even Rowan respects her a lot? However, he dared not probe too much. After the injection, he softly asked, "By some chance, you know the production methods of B0-2? The folks from Team B have gotten a newly developed special drug from HQ and had started various studies, yet there were no results insofar." Nicole glanced at him and said with a very flat tone, "I do. If you want to learn, I can teach you." Victor's eyes widened as a touch of joy appeared on his face. He then felt a little remorseful for trying to test Nicole. No matter who she was, for her to be willing to tell him such a precious formula was unimaginable. That meant she was his greatest mentor in his path of studying medicine. Victor looked at Nicole, a girl who was at least a few years younger than him, with respect, and a look of determination appeared in his eyes. "I will not disappoint you." Nicole herself did not bear many expressions as she took a piece of paper and wrote a few formulas on it before handing it over to Victor. Have a look yourself. You can ask me if you don't understand something. She had a good impression of Victor, and if she could teach him such simple things, then she would. It would be good if it could help him. Victor treated the piece of paper as if it was a treasure. What he saw was not only the most primitive of B0-2 production methods, she even gave him 2 upgraded variants on top of the basic formula, and that could improve the drug's efficacy in different directions. Victor's eyes lit up as he placed the paper in his arms and gave Nicole a deep bow. Thank you. Perhaps this was just a small matter for Nicole, but it may very well change his life in a certain way. Nicole's expression was impassive as she stood up and helped him up. She then encouraged him with a calm voice. Do your best. Victor understood what she meant and nodded. He then went about doing the calculations in the ward until afternoon, forgetting to even have lunch. Nicole looked at the completed 4-drip packet and deftly pulled the needle out and stopped the bleeding. Seeing her movements, Victor quickly said, how can I let you do this yourself? He wanted to take over, but Nicole said, doctors and patients are alike. There's no hierarchy between us. You don't have to treat me like that. After hearing this, Victor stood there in a daze. It took a good while before he snapped back, and a look of deep introspection appeared in his eyes. Nicole was really one to wake someone up with her succinct words. He gave Nicole a deep look. His attitude became much more natural as he said, I'll clean up the patient. Please stand aside. Nicole nodded as she got up and walked to the side. At the same time, she contacted Rowan to send someone to pick her up. Soon, she got a response. Nicole walked to the locker room and changed out of her white clothes. She then slowly walked out of the room. The special forces were waiting for her at the cuckoo, with a few at the back standing around Mr. Riddle Sr. guarding him. Every single one of them was full of respect for Nicole. When Victor saw this, he knew he had nothing to worry about, so he stood to the side and bade Nicole farewell. Nicole nodded at him and then said to Owen, Let's go back to the Riddle family manor. Back in school, Nora has been waiting for the Riddle family to contact her. However, since the day she left the hospital, neither her parents nor her brothers contacted her at all. They really forgot about me after getting to know their real sister. The more she thought about it, the more bitter she got. Nora really wished she could make Nicole disappear. However, Nicole had not come to school for the past 2 days. Even when she wanted to find someone to deal with Nicole, she could not. So, she could only talk behind Nicole's back with Snow and Rain. At this moment, the 3 of them were in the cafeteria having a meal together, and Nora was chattering about Nicole. Snow finally could not bear it. Can you shut up for a bit? She had had enough, and she really did not want to hear Nicole's name. Nora was taken aback. Didn't Snow and Rain hate Nicole the most? What's happening? However, seeing Snow's rather odd mood, she quickly pretended. What's the matter, Snow? Last weekend, I heard Harvey had gone on a trip as well. Say, could they be? Nora sneered within. She had already done her investigation, but she did not know whether Snow knew about it or not. Where did you say she went to? Nottingbrook. Snow was slightly taken aback. She knew that Harvey had gone to Nottingbrook, but not Nicole. When she thought that the 2 of them could be together, Snow was extremely dejected. Yet, when she remembered the pink diamond Harvey gave her, she felt a little better. Even when the 2 of them are together, it must have been Nicole who seduced Harvey. I still have a place in Harvey's heart, otherwise, why would he give me the pink diamond? She had already had it evaluated. That pink diamond was worth 100 million. It was far, far more expensive than the presents her parents had given her. So much so she was happy for a good few days. Yeah, I don't know what she went there for. Ever since Harvey returned, she had been pestering him all day. Snow, you can't just sit and wait any longer. It's time to teach Nicole a lesson. Nora sneered. She did not have many connections, so it was best to leave this to Snow. After all, she was much smarter than Rain. Nicole, that batch. Her getting Gary's attention aside, she even seduced Harvey too. What a batch. Snow, we cannot let her do as she please any longer. Snow looked at Rain and was much agitated by her words as she looked at Nora. You seem to hate Nicole too. Nora was taken aback by the question and could only nod. Yes, she's so skittish. Who would like her? Snow then narrowed her eyes slightly as she said, how about you do it this time? The two of you live under the same roof. No one will suspect you. Snow was, however, not a pushover. She had already noticed rain being used by Nora several times before. Nora could not help but grit her teeth. She did not expect Snow to not be fooled. But since things had already reached this state, she could only agree. I'm not as capable as you, nor am I well connected as you, Snow. If I could be of help, I too want to teach that brat a lesson. After all, as long as Snow sent someone, she could say that it was ordered by Snow in the end. The two sisters were not as smart as her, after all. Then it's decided. Once she's back, we'll make her pay. Best still if we can get her expelled from the Royal Creek Institute. As the three Riddle family girls were discussing how to deal with Nicole, Khloe, who had returned to the country, was racking her brain trying to find a way to contact Nichelle and get her character back. After all of her ideas ran into a wall, she could only give her grandmother a call. After all, the branch family of the Rogers family was still capable. The call quickly connected as Khloe said, "Grandma, it's me, Khloe. You must have heard about that matter, and Nichelle Holder seemed to have some misunderstanding. Can you find an opportunity so that I can have a meal with her?" When her grandmother heard that, she immediately agreed. Khloe's expression immediately turned brighter as her face became bright and beautiful as she said, "I know you love me the most, Grandma. I'll come over to visit you in 2 days." Finally, something went her way, and Khloe finally found the courage to go on Twitter to have a look. She originally thought that what happened at Nottingbrook would be exposed, yet no one seemed to know about it. Yet after seeing that one Nichelle announced that she was no longer working with Khloe, many netizens spoke up for her, thinking that it was inappropriate for Nichelle to change people without a proper reason. They even suggested that Khloe was being very agreeable and that the director should come out and state her reason as well as apologize to Khloe and that she cannot just do things on her whim. The post itself was vaguely threatening. When Khloe saw this, she was a little joyous, yet she quickly took a deep breath as the comments suddenly disappeared. A look of fear gradually appeared in her eyes. She realized that if things went on like this, Nichelle would be angered, and by then, she would definitely spill what she did in Nottingbrook out. When that happens, she will be the one that suffers. For now, Nichelle still might not want to cut ties with her. So, Khloe quickly sent out a tweet, its content very ambiguous. It did not touch upon whether she was at fault or not, nor did it fault Nichelle. She only thanked her fans and the crew of Lukewarm in a business-like matter, saying that she was very happy during the half-month preparation work and hoped that they would have a chance to work together again. That way, she looked like she was very magnanimous. Many thought that her attitude was commendable and voiced support for her, saying that she would only climb higher with that mentality. Many of her fans even thought that she had suffered a huge grievance but refused to put it into words, so they left messages of comfort in reply. Seeing things progressing in this direction, Khloe let out a satisfied grin. That way, she had room to advance and retreat and might have another opportunity to work with Nichelle after meeting her. If there was none, a cold glint appeared in Khloe's eyes. Nicole and the special forces walked out of the dilapidated thatched cottage and finally moved away from the artificial incandescent light into the real sunlight. A look of satisfaction appeared on her face. This was probably the reason why she could never stay long at Yaminia. She really could not stand not seeing the sunny days on end. With Nicole around, the few quickly crossed the defensive belt and arrived at the awaiting helicopter. After Mr. Riddle Sr. was uplifted into it, Nicole deftly leaped onto the chopper as well. The special forces, too, got on the chopper as they looked at Nicole with a faint, inquiring look. Nicole ignored their gaze and just casually leaned against the side of the fuselage. She looked very calm as if she was entranced watching the sun outside. 10 minutes later, the helicopter slowly landed at the gate of the Riddle family manor. Someone inside the house heard the commotion outside and came out. When he saw Nicole and her entourage, their eyes widened. The leading special force boomed, "We are the 2nd Squad of Strike Team Blizzard of the 1st Army, here to send Miss Riddle back." The person was terrified by his imposing presence and could only manage a wait, before running back into the manor to inform Damien and the others. A few minutes later, Damien and Dexter appeared at the gate of the Riddle family manor, and when they saw the scene at the gate, they too were flabbergasted. They have never seen such a high-level military unit before. Damien still managed to calmly ask Nicole. These people are, he too, wanted to use this opportunity to get to know some people from the military. Nicole ignored him, her expression cold. You want to let Grandpa catch a cold outside? As she said that, she ignored Damien's expression as she motioned to the few special forces behind her, and very quickly, Mr. Riddle Sr. was escorted into the house. No one dared to stop her from behind. Nicole and the special forces' pace and demeanor were almost alike. Seeing him being ignored, Damien was so angry his chest heaved, but he quickly recomposed himself as he took a deep breath and followed her in. When everyone in the manor saw the soldiers behind Nicole, each and every one of them were like a terrified quail. When they saw Damien following behind and trying to show the way, their eyeballs were about to fall off. When Daniel and Gloria came out, they instantly ran into that scene. The two of them were a little surprised as well as they did not think that their eldest brother, who was very blunt toward them, was following behind Nicole like a sidekick. Following his gaze, Daniel saw the few special forces behind Nicole. They had met the few in the hospital earlier, so they went toward Nicole. Nicole, you're back. Nicole looked at them and nodded gently. Seeing Gloria was about to ask her something, she spoke first. Let's get Grandpa settled down first. Daniel also saw Mr. Riddle Sr., who was breathing smoothly with a ruddy face. He understood what happened, and a look of joy appeared in his eyes as he looked inquiringly at Nicole. Nicole then nodded gently back at him. Daniel understood what she meant as he held his wife's hand and said, make way for Nicole. He knew that his daughter was no big boaster. When she said she could cure father, that meant there was no problem. When he thought of this, a look of pride welled in his eyes. Gloria also felt the same. She looked at Nicole's back and excitedly took out her phone to call her few sons home. Nicole has cured Grandpa. When they got the message, they immediately rushed from different directions. Damien also seemed to be reminded of something as he quickly gave his daughters a call. Yesterday, Khloe told him on the phone that she would return to the country today and might make it when Mr. Riddle Sr. woke up. Khloe was browsing social media in her own apartment and was a little annoyed when she heard that. Yet, she still packed up and rushed back to the manor. When Karen heard the commotion from upstairs, she came out to see what was going on and her expression instantly turned gloomy. Dylan had already told her everything, that the best doctors of San Joto had only a 50% probability for Mr. Riddle Sr.'s operation. The two were waiting for Nicole to fail to cure him and become the villain of the Riddle family. Yet, she somehow managed to heal him back to health. Karen wanted to say something, but seeing the powerful-looking soldiers behind Nicole, she said nothing as she hid in her room in a panic and called Dylan. That Nicole seemed to have really cured the old man. Damn it all. Dylan was lying on the executive chair in the office doing nothing and almost jumped up in shock as he heard that. What did you say? Karen immediately told Dylan what she saw, and after hearing that, Dylan's heart was beating wildly as he grabbed his coat and rushed home. How could that be? That Nicole actually managed to cure the old man even when the best surgeons in San Joto only have a 50% assurance. Who did she call? Along the way, countless thoughts appeared in Dylan's head. He suddenly remembered the people who took Mr. Riddle Sr. away. That mixed-blooded doctor did not look like some pushover, but Nicole said that they were actors she hired. Could it be that Nicole was lying to me? After realizing it, Dylan was flushed red as he quickly gave Snow a call. Snow, have you done what Dad asked you to? Snow was taking the pink diamond Harvey gave her to the best jewelry store in San Joto, thinking of putting the diamond on a matching right so that she could wear it and show it off to everyone. At this moment, when she got the call from an angry Dylan, she was a little stunned. To be honest, after looking at the diamond, she had totally forgotten what Dylan had asked her to do. A look of guilt flashed across Snow's face, but she quickly recomposed herself as she said, I've told Harvey already. What happened, Dad? Dylan then spat in a frenzy. Nicole seemed to have cured your grandpa. Quick, come back with Rain quickly. When Snow heard this, she was taken aback. Didn't the best doctors in San Joto say there's only a 50% chance to cure him? Nicole actually managed to do that. Dylan, too, did not want to believe that, and he hissed coldly. Told you to act faster. See what happens now. The limelight is all on Nicole now. As he said that, he hung up the phone angrily as he continued to grumble about Snow. Snow had never been yelled at like this before. She looked at her darkened phone screen as her expression turned sullen. She then said to the driver in front, "Turn around, pick up Rain and go back to the Riddle family manor." The driver acknowledged and drove the car toward the Royal Creek Institute. Rain had only just finished her class, and before she could go to ask Gary out for a date, she saw her elder sister waiting for her at the gate. Realizing something, she could only say goodbye to Gary and hurriedly walked out. Gary was not too concerned about Rain. His mind had been focused on that signature for the past few days now. He had applied to join the Hunters but had not heard back yet. Nicole had been absent since last Friday. Gary put away his phone into his pocket, and a slight look of irritation appeared on his face. He currently had no way to reach the apex circle of hackers, and using his channels to seek out Lucifer netted him nothing. He put his hands into his trouser pockets as a look of conflict appeared on his face. A few seconds later, as if he had made up his mind, he walked toward the school gate. Back at the Riddle family manor, Nicole helped Mr. Riddle Sr. to settle down and then ran another check to him to ensure that the journey did not cause any damage to his body. It was only then she was relieved. She turned around and looked at the others. The chill in her eyes slowly faded away, her voice gentle. "Thank you." The few special forces looked at each other. As Nicole looked at them, they were at a loss for words. The leading special force soldier could only ask respectfully, "Miss Riddle, is there anything else that you need?" Nicole shook her head. Seeing that, the soldiers immediately snapped into a salute as he spoke into the walkie-talkie, "Second squad mission complete. Withdraw." The soldiers left the room in huge strides when they saw Damien standing outside the room. The few of them stopped and looked at him for a few seconds before letting out a solemn smile. "Mr. Riddle, please take good care of Miss Riddle. If we find out that anyone dares to bully her, we will definitely pay San Giotto a visit." At this moment, Damien's expression got even more serious. He had originally thought that they were just acquaintances. He did not expect those people to be so protective of her. He really started to wonder who this Nicole was who came back from the countryside. At the same moment, the few special forces saluted Daniel and Gloria before leaving. Seeing that Daniel and his wife were being treated better than he was, Damien fumed as a somewhat complicated look finally appeared on his face. He had tried everything to get into a relationship with others, and perhaps he looked like a veritable clown in their eyes. Thinking of the difference in treatment and attitude Daniel and his wife received when compared to him, a touch of jealousy never before seen appeared on Damien's face. Daniel is a literal nobody. What right does he have to be treated like that? The more Damien thought about it, the gloomier he got. Daniel did not look at him as he rushed into the room to see Mr. Riddle Sr. When he saw the latter breathing steadily, he gently heaved a sigh of relief. Heavens knew that his biggest fear was seeing his own relatives falling sick. After all, he was all too familiar with that feeling of helplessness and powerlessness. He then looked at Nicole, his eyes bright. "Nicole, when will Grandpa wake up?" Gloria nudged him a little, hinting him to ask a few questions less. She looked at Nicole and said worriedly, "You haven't had a good rest, right? Go and take a nap. We'll be here." Nicole shook her head as she stood by the window, her face pale as snow, yet her expression indifferent. "Grandpa should wake up before long. I'll go after he wakes up." As the few spoke, Damien came in as well and heard what Nicole said. A suspicious look appeared on his face as he said, "Really? Dad will wake up soon? You aren't pulling my leg, right?" This was heart surgery. It being successful was already a good thing. Could it be possible for someone to wake up 2 days after the operation? Nicole could not be bothered by his performance. Daniel, on the other hand, answered very patiently. "Nicole will not lie to us. Damien, let's just wait." Damien frowned a little. He did not believe Nicole, but he was concerned about what the Special Force soldier had said, so he said nothing. He could only sit by Mr. Riddle Sr.'s bed and did not give anyone else a look. Gloria went to the kitchen to make some remedies. She was really distressed seeing Nicole's complexion, as she could tell Nicole had not been sleeping well. Just as Gloria was about to leave, Nicole suddenly noticed Mr. Riddle Sr.'s fingers moving slightly. She quickly walked over, and seeing that his eyes were starting to move, she was completely relieved now. Nicole gave Daniel a look, motioning him to stay here as she turned around and left the room. Damien did not understand Nicole's action, but just as he was about to say something, she had already disappeared. Daniel, on the other hand, remembered Nicole saying that she would stay until Mr. Riddle Sr. woke up. If she left, does that mean? Just as he entertained that thought, Mr. Riddle Sr. suddenly let out a slight cough as if expelling the turbid air long accumulated within him. Daniel's eyes immediately lit up, but Damien called out even faster than he could. "Dad, you're finally awake." Mr. Riddle Sr., who had been lying on the bed, slowly opened his eyes and saw the anxious Damien by his side. He stretched his hand out and patted the latter's hand to comfort him. After that, his gaze trailed away, seemingly looking for something. He then saw Daniel standing behind Mr. Riddle Sr., with the ventilation tubes on his face, let out a faint smile. He waved at Daniel as if trying to beckon this silent son over. Daniel was taken aback and walked over with some hesitation. Mr. Riddle Sr. had never liked him much. He thought that his father would have preferred to see Damien first, so he did not rush forward. When Damien saw Mr. Riddle Sr. grasping Daniel's hand with a look of relief in his eyes, an imperceptible cold glint appeared in his eyes. "This was a mistake in the choice I made. Otherwise, Daniel would not have gotten this advantage." As he thought of this, Damien seemingly stared daggers at Daniel. Mr. Riddle Sr. looked at Daniel, the son he had somewhat neglected all this while. He wanted to say something to only belatedly realize that the ventilation tubes were inserted into both his mouth and nose, making him unable to utter a single word. He was unhappy having those tubes stuck into him and wanted to pull them off. Nicole returned at this very moment as she held a small white pill in her hand. She placed the cup of water and pill by the side as she said under the curious gaze of the three present, "This is the medicine prescribed by the doctor." After that, she deftly took off the oxygen mask and tubing from Mr. Riddle Sr. and handed him the medicine. "Eat it." Mr. Riddle Sr. looked at Nicole. He wanted to refuse, yet for some reason, a part of him trusted Nicole, causing him to open his mouth and eat the medicine. He had no idea that it was a special intuition a person has toward their savior. Although Mr. Riddle Sr. was still in a daze and was not fully conscious, yet he still had a perception of what was happening in the world outside. While his brain had not reacted, his body had already helped him make this most primitive judgment. He can be fed with a liquid diet half an hour later. Mr. Riddle Sr. swallowed the medicine and watched as Nicole took care of the medical devices on his body in an orderly fashion before leaving. There was a sense of familiarity welling with him, causing him to feel close to her. Under the bright operating theater lights, the assistants going back and forth, and the cold voice over his head, "Open the wounds. Coronary angiography. Angioscope. Stent. Hemostat. All right. Apply the suture." Gradually, the voice seemed to merge together with Nicole's voice by his side. Mr. Riddle Sr. looked at Nicole's back in a daze that he did not even listen to what Damien was saying to him. He looked on for a few seconds and wanted to get out of bed. Damien watched on as Mr. Riddle Sr., who was watching Nicole leaving. He felt that something was gradually slipping out of his control. He clenched his fist and looked at the empty door with an unpredictable glint in his eyes. Daniel heard what Nicole said and quickly stopped Mr. Riddle Sr. from trying to get out of the bed as he shook his head at him. "Dad, you cannot get out of bed yet." Mr. Riddle Sr. realized that he was really weak, so he nodded weakly and lay down again. The main door downstairs suddenly opened as Dylan rushed in worriedly. His eyes wandered around the hall, and what he imagined did not happen. It only then did his expression ease. He knew that Nicole had no way to cure Mr. Riddle Sr. As he thought of it, he went upstairs and found that Mr. Riddle Sr.'s room door was opened. It couldn't be. Right, Dylan thought, did that old man really recover? He walked toward Mr. Riddle Sr.'s room in surprise as he pushed the door open undecidedly. Mr. Riddle Sr. had already seen his silhouette and squinted his eyes as he watched his movements. Seeing that him pushing the door open to ascertain something, without any intention of coming in to see him, a cold glint flashed across Mr. Riddle Sr.'s eyes as he let out a heavy grunt. Dylan heard the grunt and was trembling in fear, almost falling down in the process. He stood back up in embarrassment and looked in the direction of the voice. He saw the old man leaning against the head of the bed, looking at him with a pair of vigorous eyes. He cursed in his heart as he ran over to Mr. Riddle Sr.'s side. As he smiled flatteringly, "Dad, you're finally well. I was worried about you." After saying that, he wanted to push Daniel, who had not much presence, aside. Who knew that Mr. Riddle Sr. grabbed onto Daniel's hand and ignored Dylan altogether as he closed his eyes and turned his head away. He was not blind. Dylan clearly did not look like he was worried about him just now. He was just here to see whether he was dead or not, he thought. Dylan was stunned when he saw that. He looked on disbelievingly at Mr. Riddle Sr.'s attitude, and his heart immediately sank. Damien glanced at him, a glint appearing beneath his glasses. At this moment, Steve and Sean had come home. They rushed up immediately upon arriving, and upon seeing Mr. Riddle Sr. breathing normally on the bed, they let out a sigh of relief. Stanley, Spencer, and Samuel, too, rushed in at this moment. Seeing his grandsons, the old man slowly opened his eyes. Samuel immediately exclaimed in surprise, "Grandpa, you're cured." Nicole really cured Grandpa. He wanted to rush over, but Spencer immediately pulled him by the collar. "Don't rush. Grandpa has not fully recovered yet." It was rare that Samuel did not talk back. He could see that Mr. Riddle Sr. was weak and obediently stopped. Seeing the few calm and well-behaved grandchildren before him, a look of comfort appeared in Mr. Riddle Sr.'s eyes. His voice was a little hoarse from his sickness, but it was still very powerful. "Since you've all come back, stay for the night. I'll get the housekeeper to prepare dinner for all of you." After surviving this ordeal, Mr. Riddle Sr. would cherish these grandchildren of his a little bit more. "Nice. We'll stay back and accompany you tonight, Grandpa." Spencer nodded in agreement. This was the first time that Mr. Riddle Sr. realized that Daniel's children were particularly adorable. Upon seeing that Daniel's sons were all present and seeing the former bringing his sons over to flatter the old man as soon as he came back, Dylan wanted to get angry. Yet before he could open his mouth, Mr. Riddle Sr.'s cold glance swept over as if to tell him that he had no right to speak here. Dylan opened his mouth and said nothing in the end. He was a little annoyed with his father's attitude, yet he could not understand what caused the current situation he was in. Downstairs, Nicole was alone for some peace and quiet. Gloria had just walked out of the kitchen, and Nicole was holding a bowl of hot soup she had prepared for her. She drank it without any expression and said, "Thanks, Mom. The base is all fine and dandy, but the chef is just nowhere as good as Gloria's cooking. Really? You look really haggard over these past 2 days. You must have gone through a lot." Thinking Nicole taking care of Mr. Riddle Sr. for the past few days, Gloria could not help but feel distressed. "It's fine. It's my duty. Only when Grandpa gets better that you two will be at ease." If it were not for her parents, she would not have activated the branch for the sake of the old man. However, seeing that both Gloria and Daniel were at peace now, she felt everything was worth it. "Silly girl. You need to take good care of yourself for Mom not to worry." Her dark circles were so pronounced it was clear that she had not been resting well for the past few days. "All right, once we get home, I'll take a good rest." With Mr. Riddle Sr. now hale again, she could indeed relax. "Good." Gloria nodded, feeling relieved. As the two spoke, Dexter and Emma came back with Ella and Emery in tow. Even Miley brought Everett over to visit. Karen rushed over with Preston, and Snow and Rain arrived at last for fear of missing the opportunity. Yet when they arrived, they were still last no matter how they rushed. But they had no other way but to just bite the bullet and head in to see the old man now. Mr. Riddle Sr.'s awakening was a big matter, and everyone in the Riddle family rushed home, almost filling his room to the brim. Mr. Riddle Sr. leaned against the bed as he looked at everyone. Although his face was pale, he still had a presence and vigor about him. The only difference was that normally he would be flanked by Damien and Dylan. Yet this time around, Daniel took Dylan's place. He glanced at everyone calmly, yet the gaze still bore an air of authority. "Take a seat." Mr. Riddle Sr.'s room was large, so everyone found a spot to sit down. After Dylan sat down, he looked at his original spot, now taken by Daniel, and a look of resentment appeared in his eyes. Nicole sat to the left of her elder brother, while Samuel sat to her right. Snow brought Rain over to express concern. "Grandpa, you're finally well. You really scared, yeah, Grandpa. You scared us by falling so ill so suddenly." As Mr. Riddle Sr. looked at their eyes, his anger toward Dylan subsided a little. His eyes gradually became calmer as he said, "Good girls, at least you still know how to worry about Grandpa. Grandpa didn't love you guys for nothing." Snow and Rain both nodded and wanted to sit by Grandpa's side as usual. Yet they found that the person sitting beside Grandpa was not their father but that inconspicuous Uncle Daniel. While their father, Dylan, was seated right next to the door. Snow and Rain had normally sat by Grandpa's side because of Dylan, but at this moment, the person sitting on their spot was Nicole. A look of jealousy gushed in their eyes as their fingernails bit deep into their palm. Rain did not hide her disgust as she said, "Uncle Daniel, why are you sitting at my father's spot? Don't you know where you should be seated?" Nicole ignored her, but Samuel retorted, "Who stipulated that this spot is yours?" Rain sneered in return. "Who doesn't know that Uncle Daniel can't do anything in the company at all? What right does he have to sit by Grandpa's side?"
Thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed this story, please like and share so others can see it too. Also hit the subscription button and notification bell so you can be notified on our next release. Thank you for your support. God bless you.